Two educators in two different states put behind bars, accused of acting inappropriately with young students.
This is real abuse, and this can have long-term consequences for the abused victim, even though they don't think that it does.
In Michigan, a 79-year-old middle school employee was charged for allegedly sending inappropriate texts and Snapchat messages to a minor. Sue Ann Ash turned herself into police on a felony warrant for accosting children for immoral purposes. State troopers say they were notified of a woman who had allegedly been texting and Snapchatting inappropriate messages to a minor in September, the same month she retired as a paraprofessional at Kalkaska Middle School. At this time, it's unclear how old the child was and what the messages entailed, as authorities have not yet released those details. However, police say the unidentified victim knew their suspect. Search warrants were obtained for Ash's home, and several electronic devices were seized and sent to the Michigan State Police Computer Crimes Unit for analysis. Their report was submitted to the prosecutor's office, and a warrant was issued on January 8th for Ash's arrest. So what leads an educator who has worked at the middle school for more than a decade to do something like this? I spoke with psychologist Dr. John Delatorre, who says abusers can exist at all different ages.
I think the 79-year-old woman is probably an outlier here. That's not really something that we would anticipate be happening. However, if we include her in sort of why the profile of why individuals commit these kinds of abuses, it really is this sort of lowering of self-esteem, but in connection with this idea that children are the only people that the abuser can connect with. And so they have these sort of false relationships, right? They believe that these things are much more intimate than what they actually are, or they believe that the child is able to, engage in seductive kinds of behaviors, right, that they're able to consent into sexual relationships. And then there's a power dynamic, right? There's some individuals that absolutely want to take control, and they see children as just easy marks to dominate and to influence into engaging in behaviors, believing that they don't understand what exactly it is that they're doing.
Then another similar case, but this one states away in Texas, where 30-year-old Leslie Renee James is charged with inappropriate relationship between educator and student. According to Killeen police, Leslie Renee James allegedly invited over an 18-year-old male student to her home, where police say they engaged in sexual contact. According to local reports, detectives with the Special Victims Unit received a complaint regarding the incident on November 16th. At this time, it's unclear how many times the former math teacher and the student saw one another or when the abuse first began. And although the unnamed victim in this case was technically at the age of consent because he is 18 years old, as Dr. Delatorre explains, it's still a crime.
No one is having a relationship with a minor. That's not what's happening, right? Adults don't do that. And I think the way we talk about sex and the way we talk about relationships really perpetuate a lot of myths about what is healthy and unhealthy sexuality. But not only that, it prevents us from actually having appropriate conversations. By that, I mean parents to children having appropriate conversations about what it means to interact with adults in authority, and how to appropriately approach other adults when something nefarious might be happening, because that's what this is abuse. It's always is abuse. It's never a relationship. And what I will say to that is that's also a common thing for individuals who are abusers to think, even if they aren't, right, the victim isn't 18 years old. Now, yes, we're in a kind of gray, nebulous area. The person was in high school, but was 18. So there's an area in which the person's thoughts, right, the cognitions that they were having was that this person can make informed decisions. They are a consenting adult. They're in high school, so technically that's not true. But the concept of these things are happening by consent perpetuates a lot of abusers' thought process and why they continue to engage in these behaviors, even though they know they shouldn't. As much as children and adolescents, especially older adolescents, like to think they don't know everything, right? They don't know, and this is exactly the confusing aspect of it, because now they're confusing healthy sexuality for this power dynamic, right? This opportunity to say no. Sex is supposed to be a balance between partners. And instead, what they're being taught is that there's always some kind of nefarious influence. There has to be some kind of problematic issue that's associated with it. And they're also confusing now what is authority versus what should be a healthy partnership within a romantic relationship. So there's a lot of confusion that would be happening in these kinds of scenarios.
Here's what else we know about Leslie James. According to social media, she was a math teacher at Shoemaker High School since 2017, even posting this graduation cap, which reads, "I inspire young minds because the limit doesn't exist," seemingly referring to her then upcoming job as a teacher. Authorities issued a warrant for her arrest in January, and on January 25th, James turned herself into the Bell County Jail where she was held on a $50,000 bond. James reportedly doesn't work at Shoemaker High School, and the school's website no longer lists her as a teacher. With two now former educators locked up, what is prompting the cases to be seemingly so prevalent across the country? Dr. Delatorre says these abuse cases have always been present, but now all the evidence can quickly be accessed with the touch of a finger.
Well, I think that's another part of the myth that we're having to deal with. This has been going on since there were instructor and pupil dynamics, right? So this has been a problem for the history of education. This isn't something that's new. I think what we're experiencing now is that the evidence left behind, what used to be sort of in person, you can kind of, right, as the abuser, you can say this is a he said, she said kind of thing. The evidence that's left behind is now electronic, right? It's never going anywhere, right? Once it's out there in the ether, it's never going to be deleted. And I think that's why we're seeing it caught as often as we are, is because it's very hard to delete electronic trails.
With both Ash and James committing different forms of abuse, Dr. Delatorre says it's possible they could face different punishments.
Yeah, and a lot of that has to do with the jurisdiction that you're in, and the type of crime, the title of the crime that you're going to be, that the prosecutor is going to seek an indictment on, and potential punishment, right? So it's certainly possible that even though the behaviors were the same, right, that it's certainly possible that across jurisdictions the behaviors are the same, but the prosecutor, for whatever reason, has decided to indict on various different levels, believing that that's the only way that they can actually get a conviction. And so you would see different amounts of punishment being associated with that, even for the same.
As for the young victims in these cases, Dr. Delatorre explains while children are resilient, they may benefit from therapy to help sort out what happened to them by what was supposed to be trusting adults.
Well, I think everybody needs therapy all of the time. So for children, though, they're way more resilient. Children are way more resilient than we give them credit for, and I think a lot of it has to do with what's going on at home. If the children have an opportunity to interact with their parents and be able to be fully open with the parents not making any judgments, then perhaps they don't need therapy. But if your child ever comes to you and says, "I need to talk to someone," then take them to go see someone. You are the parent, therapists are the therapists, friends are friends. Never the different relationships should interact. They're all, again, these cases are always abuse. It's never funny. It's never meant to be this opportunity to say, "Oh, isn't it great that this one person is able." No, 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 no. We need to have healthy conversations about what is appropriate and inappropriate sexual relationships, what is inappropriate sexual conversations. These aren't jokes. This is real abuse, and these can have long-term consequences for the abused victim, even though they don't think that it does.
Online records reveal a preliminary hearing is scheduled for Sue Ann Ash on February 12th. Meanwhile, Leslie James bonded out of jail after posting a $50,000 bond. Reporting for Law&Crime, I'm Elizabeth Millner.